What do you get when you put a Nepo baby, the king of retail, and one of the best creative directors to ever work for J. Crew into a startup company? You get Alex Mill. Hello internet friends, and welcome back to my series where we look for quality clothing within a brand. Today we are focusing on Alex Mill. Okay, so I am doing the owner and creator of Alex Mill a little dirty by calling him a Nepo baby, but it is so hard not to when your father is literally the king of retail, the merchant prince. Alex Drexler, the mastermind behind the brand, just so happens to be the son of one of the biggest names in clothing retail, running stores I'm sure you have shopped at over the last 40 years. That is Mickey Drexler. Now, if you caught my J. Crew video, you already know Mickey Drexler ran that company during its peak years, but he is also credited with saving Ann Taylor during the 1980s, bringing the Gap from $400 million to $14 billion in the 90s. He also happened to create Old Navy during his years at Gap Inc. and was CEO of J. Crew during its golden years. So yeah, his dad has done a lot for retail. And honestly, can you blame him for going the fashion route? I don't in the least bit. So let's unpack Alex Mill. Started in 2012 by Alex Drexler using his name and sort of a play on mills, think like fabric mills. He started a small shop selling the essentials, mostly men's shirts. Fast forward to 2019 when his dad, Mickey Drexler, joined him on this business venture as chairman. Honestly, I think he's an investor and the CEO, but because this is a startup company, there's really no formal way to categorize everybody, I don't think. So it's still up in the air what everybody's job titles are. But from what I can gather, Alex Drexler, creator, owned the company for years and years and years, and then Mickey came on in 2019, and we're just gonna call him the CEO. Mickey also brought in Somsak, who used to work for J. Crew as one of the lead creative directors. I mean, we're talking the golden years of J. Crew, Jenna Lyons days, Mickey Drexler days. That was where Somsak was in. Okay, so the Avengers have all assembled, and now we have Alex Mill in its current form. As a company, Alex Mill focuses on everyday essentials. Basics, but with my favorite catchphrase, quality over quantity. So now that we have the backstory established, that poses the question, does Alex Mill sell quality clothing? Is it worth the price tag? Because Alex Mill does tend to run very expensive. So today we're going to do a deep dive into the quality and clothing that Alex Mill has to offer. But first, before we jump into that, I would like to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is Meaningful Beauty. Building a timeless wardrobe is all about intention and quality, and I think choosing your skincare should be built the exact same way. Lately, I have been using the Meaningful Beauty 7-piece skincare system, and it really is like an intentional curated routine for your face. Every product is designed to work together, just simple steps that make your skin feel firmer, smoother, and more hydrated. The 7-piece deluxe skincare system was co-created by Cindy Crawford using her own experience and skincare secrets. It's streamlined, high performance, makes my skin feel plump, hydrated, and protected, especially with the SPF day cream. Absolute non-negotiable for myself, which layers perfectly under makeup. The youth activating melon serum is powered by an antioxidant-rich melon grown only in the south of France that doesn't age like normal melon. The serum uses melon leaf stem cell technology and a delivery system called Hydrosome H2O to help plump, hydrate, and protect your skin from environmental stressors. Right now, you can try the complete 7-piece system for just $59.95 plus 2 free full-size gifts. That's 25% off, a $300 value, and shipping is free. The link is in my description box down below. Thank you again so much, Meaningful Beauty, for sponsoring today's video. And now back to Alex Mill. Alex Mill only has 3 stores across the United States, and they are all located in New York. So I don't really have the budget for a day trip to New York, you guys, so I did go ahead and order a couple pieces to test out the quality. I have also thrifted a handful of Alex Mill pieces in the past, so I already knew going into this that this was kind of on my preferred brand list. They very rarely run sales, but I did just so happen to catch them on one of their markdown sales. One thing to note with their sales, all sales are final, and on top of that, these are typically runs of items that they are discontinuing. First off, we have the Marseille striped boat neck tee in cotton. This was originally priced at $128. This is a substantial cotton jersey. I would describe it as a mid-weight, but it's by no means thin or flimsy. There is a cover stitch hem at the sleeves and bottom, nicely serged with extra bar tacks, which we like that. I will say this is a very basic t-shirt. I wish they were a little bit more transparent with sourcing and where things are made. Most of their products, save a few, are manufactured overseas, which is okay in my book, but they don't have very much transparency on the website where they're manufacturing these pieces. There are so many websites now that list the actual manufacturers on their website. That level of transparency I think is so important. But at the end of the day, I mean, it is kind of just a basic t-shirt. I'm not gonna say it's like the best investment piece that I've ever made. I mean, at that price point, I would have asked for like, tell me this is premium cotton. Tell me this is something a little bit more substantial than what I just paid for. Now, granted, again, I did not pay the $128. I got this on sale. So there is that to consider. Next, we have the Luna pleated shorts. These are probably my favorite purchase that I made from Alex Mill. I think this really gave me an opportunity to break down what makes this brand a premium line and what can make your investment go that much farther. And the best part about this is, if you caught my J. Crew video, you know I purchased some Bermuda shorts. So I do have a piece that I can kind of compare this to. Are they item for item? No, but I do think it's a good way to kind of point out whether you're a thrifter, whether you're looking to purchase from this piece online, you know, all the different tells that you can look for to kind of realize that these are premium garments. So for starters, this is a twill weave. You can spot this by the diagonal lines as opposed to just a plain weave, which the J. Crew shorts that I got, those are a plain weave. There's nothing wrong with linen being a plain weave. In fact, most linen that you purchase is going to be plain weave. You're actually going to get a lot more breathable piece of clothing. But if you want to think in terms of durability and, you know, like a workwear type piece, that's where you want to invest in something that is a twill weave. It's also going to be far less prone to wrinkles, drapes really well. It has just kind of a little bit more of a fluid finish. So to me, the Alex Mill shorts fall into a lot more of a versatility standpoint. And also, not to mention, I mean, just wait, like they're just so much better in so many different ways. The shorts itself have very clean finishes in them. We're talking binding, so seams won't unravel and it will sit far more comfortable on your skin. These things are especially important in high stress points. So the J. Crew shorts, you have just basic surged finish, and then you have the Alex Mill shorts, you have the binding on the seams. That alone to me is like a super indicator of premium, well thought out, intentional clothing. You also have high quality zippers and buttons. This was another thing that I pointed out in the J. Crew video. I was like appalled at the fact that they used these zippers. I could not believe that. That has just told me that they have stripped down every single aspect of manufacturing these clothes to the very basics that they can get away with. So compared to the J. Crew shorts, you can see where J. Crew cuts every single corner. The serge seams, no finishes, bottom of the barrel zippers. The plain weave also leaves the J. Crew a little bit more vulnerable. If you want these to be high functioning products, because it's more delicate, this leaves the fabric itself a little bit more on the delicate side and prone to sagging, which again, though, I cannot emphasize this enough. That all comes down to preference. That is very much something that, what are you shopping for? What is it that you want this outfit to do for you? Because if the functionality of it is to be a summertime piece, I actually think those shorts solve that dilemma. I think they clearly cut corners on it, but I think at the end of the day, they are very breathable shorts. But if you want something that's going to be a workhorse in your wardrobe, which ultimately is what I gravitate towards, like that's exactly what I'm looking for, is something that's going to be a workhorse. The Alex Mill piece, hands down, worth every penny to me. So the real standout moment though, to me, for these shorts is the construction. You have pleating on the Alex Mill shorts. This is going to be a far more flattering fit and a structured waistband. And the J. Crew shorts, those have elastic backing. Something like these shorts are still gonna get use in my wardrobe, but they're just not something that I feel like is going to be a long-term piece, a long-term investment. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like I am not all about the idea of consumption, and you know, me purchasing these items is very outside of my wheelhouse of like normal content creation. But lately you guys have seemed to like really enjoy these deep dives, and I hope you guys understand that like these purchases are made more out of, you know, trying to understand where we're at as a marketplace and, you know, as a like manufacturing and as a whole. I guess at the end of the day, my point is these pieces have now become so valuable for me in the sense of being able to compare them and understand the like constant breakdown that we're being faced with, and also help us all in the long run make these better decisions, whether it's thrifting, whether it's shopping online secondhand, or, you know, going into stores and seeing these pieces firsthand. Like, what are those like telltale signs that we all need to be looking for? Next is the Soho scoop vest in linen, which is actually what I'm wearing right now. This is linen cotton blend, and it does have some polyester lining. The linen cotton blend is really good because that's actually going to help with wrinkles. So you're going to have a lot more structured fit, which I think on the top is probably a little bit more important. The one area that really stood out to me though was their choice in using polyester. Now, obviously, like polyester, we're at a point in history where like it's just so hard to avoid it, but there are definitely alternatives. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is they make Cupro tops. They have Cupro button-down blouses. And to me, in my head, I was like, well, you're willing to make Cupro blouses, but you're not willing to put Cupro on your jackets. And then also, upon looking at the men's blazers and jackets, I really couldn't find anywhere listed that they use polyester lining. So I don't know, like I honestly, like I combed the internet for, you know, kind of secondhand pieces that I could really zoom in and see the lining on the pieces, and the majority of the men's, you know, they don't do like a full lined suit, but I do understand for this, they need the full lining for the structure. But yeah, my initial thought was like, I mean, at these price points, like why not use Cupro? There is a good chance that it would bring the cost up substantially, but if you're working with maybe potentially dead stock fabric or, you know, whatever the case may be, they obviously source Cupro as a fabric. So there was a small part of me that I was like, I mean, it woulda like really made it premium. And if you're not familiar with Cupro, Cupro is a semi-synthetic fabric. It is a lot like rayon. It is made of cotton linter. It is put through a chemical bath and basically it becomes a continuous filament. So it is, you know, semi-synthetic. However, it does require a chemical process to be made into the fabric. As long as it's under a closed loop system, basically just reusing the same chemicals over and over again to continuously make the product. It's not nearly as harmful for the environment as if they didn't use a closed loop system. Next, we have the cropped work jacket in linen. This is a very signature Alex Mill look. Honestly, I feel like I can spot these jackets from a mile away. Again, twill weave, very durable, falls very much into the workwear category. This is going to be very common though in jackets like this. It is also garment dyed, which, you know, that's not like a non-negotiable, but I do think it adds a little bit more character. Basically, they dye this after the garment is constructed versus the actual fabric being that color. It does kind of harken back to a very vintage feel, and I think the more you wear it, it kind of like starts to fade in certain areas, and it just, you know, it's kind of a signifier, I think, of like that kind of workwear utility, kind of vintage vibe. You know, the patina on it is gonna be really good. I thought they treated this more like a denim piece, which I like that. That's actually gonna create a lot more long-term wearability for this. So I really do think this has just a very like workwear oriented piece. Have I already said that I have a favorite? Oh, I think the shorts were my favorite, but I guess my next favorite is the jacket. I think this piece is beautiful. I love the construction on this. Like, I think this is a good representation of like beautiful construction. This, I think, is just like, it's a good jacket. Next is the Valletta dress in extra fine merino wool. Everything about this felt really premium. One of my favorite stories from when I read Kingdom of Prep, which I had to read for the J. Crew video that I did, was Mickey Drexler let it leak to the public that they were sourcing their cashmere from Loro Piana, which I know that's not a big flex right now because Loro Piana is in a lot of hot water. The fabric choices are so important when it comes to the manufacturing process. And to me, I think about that sweater and I don't know where they sourced it from. In all of the interviews that I've listened to recently, there's a lot of talk of like made in Italy product and, you know, just knowing and understanding that like the fabric matters. It matters a lot. I saved the most interesting piece to me for last. That is their denim. I picked up the Bev Relax jean. This is $225, okay? These are not cheap jeans. I have a very mixed opinion on this. I would like to consider these mid-tier. And a lot of the interviews that I listened to, they talked about the fact that they used vintage denim in a lot of their photo shoots, and then they finally decided to launch a denim collection. These definitely look and feel a lot like vintage Levi's. It's ring spun. It has like that nice worn in look and feel. It's got, you know, tracks on the sides. Everything feels very like natural, worn vintage. I've even worn these in a couple of videos and I've had you guys ask like what they were. And I think it was because you guys were waiting on me to say they were vintage Levi's. I have a pair of cone mill denim from Levi's that are the softest pair of jeans that I own. And I would compare these to those. The one thing that stood out to me that I was pretty disappointed in is the button. I think the button is very cheap. I've actually talked about this in my quality clothing video about how cheap denim will come with stamped on buttons. And this feels like it's stamped on. This does not have a substantial button feel. As far as wear goes, this feels like an area to me that would be prone to damage. And once the button's done, that's like probably one of the harder pieces to repair on a pair of jeans. And these are also button fly, which means every single one of these pieces is a weak link. Another point that I do like about those, but I'm not completely sold on, is they do say made in USA, but that's it. I don't know where they're sourcing the denim from. Do I think they are worth the $225? Yes, minus those buttons. Those buttons might actually be a deal breaker for me. I don't know if I would put Alex Mill on my list for denim jeans right now. If you're willing to be in that kind of like $200 plus price point, Imogen and Willie is probably my personal favorite. I don't actually have any in my current collection. I have thrifted some over the years. And if you're looking for like made in USA, I mean, we're talking literally every aspect of those jeans are manufactured in the United States. They also have the Cotton Project initiative, which is really good for local farmers. For the price that I paid, I think it was very well worth it. But again, you have to like really wait for those sales. But looking at it from the $225 price point perspective, I want those buttons to be a little bit better, unless I'm totally wrong and they are like some eco-friendly alternative. Okay, let's talk final thoughts and hot takes, because you know I always have some. So first of all, obviously I have to be very critical about brands when I'm doing these reviews. That's the whole point of them. But I do want to say, out of every company that I've done, obviously this has been my favorite by and far. It's been on my list of brands that I've loved for so long that it just was fun to do a deep dive into them. And I think Mickey Drexler himself he's just a fascinating dude. Like, the fact that he has shaped so much of retail, my entire career has been shaped around retail. So it's something that I find interesting. Do I find it good as someone who is like kind of anti like the consumerism level that we're at right now? Not necessarily, but I do know and understand that like we need clothes. We need well-made, good quality clothing. And that's kind of the thesis of my channel and like what I'm constantly looking for. And I think Alex Mill is one of those brands that like is doing really good in the price point that they're in. I think it's interesting though, because you have like such a powerhouse of a name backing the company that like you would expect this like top tier level, but I think they are still kind of operating like on a startup level status, which is fascinating to think about. Like I'm sure he's got a ton of money to like play around with, but he's just being very conservative in like how they're running the company. I think in some ways they do still have a mass market approach, which is like, it's always interesting to me to read like Reddit reviews and stuff like that. And like a lot of conversation around that is their lack of transparency when it comes to the manufacturing process. Another thing that I saw on Reddit was people talking a lot about the sizing being all over the place. But one thing that like really makes it feel mass market is they just recently did a campaign with Jimmy Fallon. They had their Jimmies, like PJs, Jimmys, Jammies. And I was like, that feels like, I don't know. I try my best to stay away from like fashion critiquing, because I think these videos need to be like more about information about like what to look for. But yeah, when I see like a company working with a big star name and like it's just for something that's like really basic and like a bunch of influencers are getting it, I'm like, we gotta be tuned into that kind of stuff. My favorite part about this company though is their anti-sale mentality. And I know that sounds so weird because it's like, we all want a good sale. We all want to get a good deal on something. I have watched so many interviews with Mickey Drexler point out the fact you cannot compete with the same market right down the street selling the same exact clothing for like significantly cheaper.
If you want to compete with the discounters, you'll never win. Right. Because they know what they're doing.
Mickey, I got to ask you about that, because when I think about you, me in particular, I think about two things. One, the idea of quality at value, and that needle that you've tried to thread there, and also helping Steve Jobs out launching Apple stores. And one of the things that he was always big on is not doing a whole bunch of sales and having consistency in what the customer can expect across products. Is that mindset, not over discounting, the idea of quality at a price, is that still relevant in this digital environment?
That's the whole reason we're losing good quality clothing, is because like these constant markdowns, like it's ruining fashion. We cannot operate on this level. And I say we as if like I am anywhere involved. Like I'm a consumer and I know that like it's just not something that is sustainable. And I think for them to recognize that and to stick to that, I hope they continue to do so. I am interested to see long term where the company is going to go. Like, is the end goal to sell the company and, you know, just kind of like let it be like a legacy brand kind of thing? Or is it something that like they want to keep in the family? And, you know, who knows what the long-term goal is with it. But I think at this point here right now, this brand is like the closest thing that we can get to kind of that like vintage style J. Crew that I think so many of us are constantly searching for. And also to be clear, like this is not J. Crew 2.0, and I don't think they have ever once tried to market themselves as such. And I actually really appreciate that too. I think that's like a very noble way to go about things. Obviously for me being like a brand history type person, I find it fascinating to connect those dots. But I think overall, like you look at, you know, Madewell and J. Crew, and you can kind of see that like this is just kind of that like lasting legacy of what consumers are looking for. If you want to talk about quality ranking, I would kind of put Alex Mill maybe just below brands like Billy Reed and Buck Mason. And I think that's really interesting because obviously Billy Reed and Buck Mason are two brands that catered to men. Like they were a menswear brand and then they branched out into women's wear. I know there are a ton of independent women's wear brands out there on the market that I want to cover on this channel that like I so badly want to talk about. But I do think it's interesting that like the majority of the mainstream brands that are producing really good quality, they all have operated on the level of like menswear turned into also catering to women's wear. Maybe that's what we need down below. If you know of any independent women's wear brands, leave them in the comment section down below. That's probably the last thing that I want to point out with Alex Mill is I feel like everything just like it's an all-in-one wardrobe kind of thing. If you want to shop specifically with that brand, you can build a very well curated wardrobe. Like everything was so interchangeable and everything felt like it, you know, you could just create so many different outfits with it. And I like that like every piece kind of feels like it tells a story that relates to the other pieces. And you can tell everything feels very cohesive. I think with like a lot of these fast fashion brands, that's lost on every piece. Like nothing feels like it transitions season to season. And I think with slowing down and looking at these brands that are a little bit more methodical and, you know, producing lower batches but higher quality, you can really see it translate into like season over season wearability. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you are new around here, I might have a couple extra videos for you right here and right here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.